Okay, so tonight I want to talk to you guys about some of the projects we did last week, and then also some new steps that we're going to do this week. So to start with, I wanted to touch a little bit more on extruding. Last week we looked at how you would do an inset for a screw. So let's look at that again today. So we'll start off. We're going to go to the front plane, and we are going to normalize to the front plane. All right, and so let's go to the top plane. We'll normalize to the top plane. All right, so top plane here, we're gonna just draw a rectangle. So we've got a rectangle here. We can go and do two corners. We'll give it some dimensions. We'll call this side 100. We'll call this side 50. And we will say okay. And then let us take this and we will extrude our base. We have 10 millimeters coming out this way. Let's do a 2-directional. So that way we have a drawing plane in the middle, and we'll do going at the bottom. Let's go 40 centimeters going down the bottom. All right, so you can see that right there, how those are gonna extrude. All right, so we say okay. So here is our project. One thing we want to do is we want to draw to that plane. So in order to do that, let us select this top surface, and we will normalize to that top surface. And then we can go over here to feature, and we have reference geometry, and we'll add in a plane. All right, so this plane that we're going to add in, let's make it parallel like we have right here. And we're going to say 10 millimeters. So let's rotate it around. We don't want it to be 10 millimeters on top. We want it to be 10 millimeters below. So that will put it actually onto that front plane, but it provides a plane for us to draw on. So we'll say okay. Let me check mark on there. All right, so we have that plane there to draw on. So let's select that plane and we'll normalize that plane. All right, so that means that currently we're drawing 10 millimeters deep into this object right here. So one of the things we want to do first is we want to set up some center lines because we're going to practice mirroring entities. So as you go along here, you see that marker right there lets you know that you're on the center of that line. Go up a little bit, click, drag down, click, and push escape. That gives you a center line through the middle of the object. And then we're going to do another one this way so that we can mirror from here to here and then across to both sides. So with that in mind, let's go and we will choose center line again. We'll go over here to this line, run down until we see that marker, pull out, and go over across, click, and escape. That gives us our two center lines. All right, so now we want to draw in what will be the cut down version where the countersink for where the screw is going to go, but we're going to do a U-shaped one. So we're going to come off this edge. We want to click here. We're going to go down. We'll give these values here in a second, so it doesn't matter what they are right off the bat. Pull away, remember, and then if you push in, it gives you the option to do an arc. As soon as it goes across like that, you see the line there, you know that you're even with your center point and your other line. Go through, back to the edge, and then back over to this start point. All right, so that's that feature right there. Now, we also want to draw in the feature for the actual screw hole. So let's draw a circle here. We'll say, and then we'll want to, so you click. Let's give that a radius of 5. Well, no, we don't want to do 5. Let's give it a radius of 1. All right. So that gives us a whole through. We can click off of, we can push escape. And we can come over here, we can select that point, push control, select that point, and we can merge those 2 points together. So that puts it that way we know that those two are merged perfectly. And let's give some other dimensions to this drawing right now. So let's say that our distance from here to this line is going to be 10. We will say that our radius here, oh, let's go back. We did not want to draw a point. We will click on there. So that's 10. And we want to go smart dimensions again. Click on here. We'll say that this radius is going to be 3. And then we can say that the distance here from this center point to this line, let's make that 12. All right. And then we can say that this is 2. And that gives us a fully defined feature there. All right. So it's all in black. We know it's fully defined. All right. So we'll do check mark on our dimensions. And there we go. So now we have that whole piece is fully defined. We can redraw if we need to. And all right. So we're on plane 1 already. So let's go in here, select plane 1. And we can go here and we can edit that. Now what we want to do is we want to mirror entities. So this is going to open up this screen here, and we can say the entities we want to mirror. We'll click this line, that line, that line, and the circle. And we want to mirror it about this line right here. All right, so that puts it over here, gives it the same dimension away from the line and everything. All right, and so we say check. And then we want to mirror entities again. So let's do that again. We'll select these points. There we go. And these points over here. All right, and we're going to mirror about this line right here. All right, so that flips them over to that side. All right, and we'll say okay. All right, so the next step we want to do is we want to go here, we'll redraw, and then we'll go in here and we'll go to edit, and we'll go to features, and we want to do an extruded cut. So we want to do an extruded cut for these features. So we're going to select here. I'm going to select here. I'm going to select here. I'm going to select here. And we will do a 10 millimeter down. We should be able to flip this and see. Right now they're cutting that direction. We don't want to do that. We want to cut this direction. And we'll tell it we want to go through all. So that will cut 10 millimeters up from that plane out through the surface. All right. And now we should be able to say okay. And there we go. So that cut out those notches. All right. So now we've got that. Let's go in here. We'll go in and we'll make our drawing for that. That was not the one I wanted to do. We'll make it visible. And we will open this up. We'll make that visible. All right. So now we want to, let's go to normal on that again. And we can go in here and we can select these circles. So what we want to do is we want to do extruded cut again. We'll select these circles. And we'll want to make it all the way through. We'll flip this over. All right. Let's back up real quick here. We want to select that circle, control, control, and control to select all 4 of them. Then we'll go through extruded cut. We'll want to make them all the way through. Flip it around, make sure they're going the right direction. Looks like they're going the right direction. And we say, okay. All right, now what you see is we have 4 holes for our screws drilled all the way through. We have countersunk, all of them, so the screw can go in there and the pieces are. Now, this is handy when we're doing this. It is, it's nice to do if you are mirroring stuff across a plane. So if you have identical pieces on each side, or, I mean, you wouldn't even have to flip it over to this side. Say you just had 2 holes that were mirrored on the top side of this and you wanted them to be mirrored. It's a nice feature so that way you know that they're going to be identical when they go in. It also helps you with some of the drawing. So we only had to define this one object. We didn't have to define all 4. We just had to mirror them across. So that's pretty handy when you're going that way. All right, so the next thing we want to look at is we want to look at how to do revolving cuts and revolving extrusions. So we looked at that a tiny bit last week, but we didn't really get into it in the homework. So we're going to start a new part. All right, let's go to our front plane. We'll go normal to our front plane. All right, the first thing I want to do is I'm going to go into sketch and I want to put in a center line. So here we go. We'll pull this down. We got a center line there. Now what you can do is around the center line, if you want to do a revolving feature. So like I showed in class, the first one we did was just a circle that revolved around here. So let's go in here and we'll give this a dimension. All right, so we'll make it 20. That's just simple. And then we say, okay, on our dimensions. And then what we can do is we can go to feature and we can do revolved boss base. All right. Automatic default, since there's only one center line, it defaults to that center line and it does 360 degrees around. And you say check mark, you're okay. There you go. You have a feature that's revolving all the way around that. You also remember that we can go and we can make it so that it doesn't go all the way around. So let's step backwards here. So we can do the same feature here. We can go feature, revolve boss base, and we can say 180 degrees or whatever you happen to be doing. So let's say 90 degrees. There we go. So we have a 90-degree turn, with a 20 millimeter piece of bent rod, essentially. So we've got that. Now we can step back here and say, okay, all right, we'll step back. Now, as you guys asked in class, you can have perhaps maybe you have another center line here. You have your horizontal center line. And in that case, when you pull this up and you go to feature and you go to revolve boss base, it doesn't automatically know that you're going to go around this center line. So when you give it your axis of revolution, you want to choose, at this point in time, you'll choose your axis of revolution. So in this case, we're going around the horizontal line instead. And it gives you that feature, right? So, and like I said, your line doesn't necessarily have to be a perpendicular line to the origin. It could be a line, say, over here, right? In which case, push escape. We go here, we say feature, revolve boss base. Once again, we open up to this, but for our axis of revolution, we can pick that line there instead, all right? As you see, it did our revolution around that line. Okay, so we've got that. That's the start of our revolve. This is a very simple shape. So let's back out of this. We will go to just a single line and we will There we go. Delete all the way back to our square. Let's redraw. All right, so we just have our center line again. All right, so as I showed, you can also take your sketch tools. Well, any of your sketch tools will work. We did a circle, right? But let's go with a line. You can take your line and you can draw it down. Need to be in edit. And we can take our line and we can draw down, you know, whatever your feature happens to be. Just remember that if you're going to revolve around a base, that it all has to be to one side of that axis line, all right? So in this case, we just have a one-dimensional line. So if we go up here and we go to feature and we go to revolve around a base, we're going to get this error that says it's you know, non-thin revolution. It requires that it actually has a closed feature to it. So what it did there is it automatically drew in a line around that feature. And in this case, sometimes it will do a thin line around it. In this case, it did a cone around it. It closed that point from point to point there, right? So the other thing that you might end up doing is, excuse me, say you come down here, we have our line here, we can click on, let's click on this line, right? So let's select this line. And we can go up here and we can say offset entities, right? And when we offset that entity, we can tell it what our dimensions need to be. So in this case, let's go with 1. We'll make it very skinny. And we'll say enter. It gives us a very skinny one. And then let's cap our ends. We'll cap them with a little arc. If you zoomed way in, you can see that it capped them with a little arc. All right. So now we have that feature there. We can say okay. And that gives us a feature here, right? So we have that selected. And then just like with anything else, we can go to features. We can go revolve boss base. And as you see here, if I click OK, it gives us a very thin feature. You can see the inside's cut out in there. And to show that a little bit better, we could change the color of that. So we can go to selection tools, right? We'll go in here, we'll select, say that inside face, that inside face. We can spin it up, go this inside face, this inside face, and this inside face. And then we can come over here to our colors. I'm gonna go color, and I double clicked on it. So of course it deselected what I had selected because, you know, technology. So let's go back through control. And we'll actually go. I'm gonna go up here and edit appearance. We can pick a color here and we'll say okay. All right, so see, you have a nice skinny inside feature there. Don't worry about the changing colors on stuff right now. We'll go over that next week. So that's your revolve boss base. All right. So the other thing that you can do with this is let this back out here, go over here and delete that. There we go. Confirm to delete. We can go here and we can go normal to our sketch. There we go. We're normal to our sketch, and we can delete the sketch. All right. So that lets us back up here. Okay. So we're going to sketch in here. Let's draw our center line again. So let me go in here, front plane, and make sure we're perpendicular to our front plane. Go and draw our center line. All right, so the final thing that we want to look at is, say maybe you want to do a solid piece that revolves around here. In that case, what you would do is you draw to the line. out, down, however you want it to be. Don't go past the line again, right? And then you can go into features, revolve boss base, say okay, closed it, and there you go. So you have that feature that revolved around there. And like I was saying in class, this is really handy if you're considering, if you're making a piece that would be made on a lathe or something else that revolves while it's cutting. Because when you spin a piece on a lathe, you have this center axis and all of your cutting tools work along that axis and gives you uniformity across that axis. So this is just a good way to think about it when you're setting this this type of design up. All right, so that's that feature right there. The next thing I'm going to show you is how to do a revolving extruded cut. So let's say okay. Actually, we'll just back out. Go here. We will delete these lines. Delete that line as well. All right, so we have a center point here. We want to, let's go. So we're normal to that. We'll redraw it because it wants to redraw. Let's put in a, let's put in another center line. We'll do in a horizontal center line. We'll go in, we'll edit sketch, and then we'll do a horizontal center line. All right, we'll do our horizontal center line here. And going through the origin there. All right, we'll say escape. So in this case, let us draw, say, just a cube. And that's what we did originally in the class. So we're going to draw this cube on this plane. All right. All right, we'll go to Smart Dimensions. We'll make this 200. We'll make this 200. All right. And then we'll go to say okay on our dimensions. We'll feature, revolve, no, we didn't want to revolve boss base. We'll say extruded boss base. All right, so, and once again, let's extrude this so it comes out both sides, but we'll make them even on both sides. And we're going to do a cube. So we know that the front side is going to be 100. All right, and then we'll go two directions. We'll make the back side 100 as well. All right, so that will give us a cube. Okay, there we go. We have a cube. Let's say yes. All right, so now you remember that we had that point along that center line, and that's based off of this sketch. So what we can do here is we can go to this sketch, we can make it normal, all right? And then in this case, so we're on this sketch, let's edit the sketch. And we will draw a circle up here. How about? All right, say check mark. And then we want to go to features. All right, so this is the mistake we made before. Right? So we need to give this sketch some dimensions. Let's go here to here. And we'll say that is 50. All right. And let's give it a radius of 20. Or a diameter of 20. All right, let's say okay. So now we should be able to go in. All right, so same problem we were having before. And this is a mistake I made before. We need to do this. So this is based off of this sketch. We can't have it based off of this sketch. We need to do it off of another plane. All right, so let's back out. For starters, let's define a few things here too. So let's make, so even though we know we made this the center, let's define that as our center line. So in here, we're in this sketch. Let's go to Sketch, Smart Dimensions. We'll click on this line here, and we'll click on this line here, and we'll make sure that's 100. All right. So now that feature is defined. All right. So we're good there. And then we can make this whole piece fully defined. We can go origin here to that line there. We'll say okay. Right. And then we can go from this line, escape, this line down to the origin, and say okay on that. So that makes it fully defined, right? Everything is nothing's blue anymore. So that will help us eliminate any other problems we might have. But the problem we had before is if we change this sketch, this whole boss extrude is based off of that sketch. So what we need to do is we need to say, all right, we're done with this. So we go up to this button up here, say, okay, that drops us out of this cube, right? So we know that that plane is running through there. So what we can do is we can go in here and we'll make that sketch visible so that we can still see that sketch. Now what we want to do is we want to select this plane. Let's make it normal. And then we can go up to features. We can go to reference geometry and we'll draw another plane in here, right? So we know that this cube is 200 by 200 and we want to be right in the center. So we're going to make our distance for our reference plane 100. All right. And if you then look at that, you see that it's offset this way. We want it to be in the center, so we flip offset. All right. So that puts us in the center. And so what that's going to do is it's going to create a plane and it's going to be plane 1. All right. So we say, okay, so now we have plane 1 in the center there. So what we can do from there is we can go to plane 1. We could name it if we want, but we'll just leave plane 1 right now. We'll go normal to plane 1. We'll go sketch. So now we're drawing on plane 1, right? And we can draw in our circle we were trying to draw before. Right, so we'll start on that line. We'll go like that. All right, so now we have a circle here. Let's give it a radius of 10. Say enter. All right, and we'll say okay. So we're gonna go to our smart dimensions. We'll fix this radius. There we go. And then we're gonna fix it to this center line. All right, smart dimensions. We'll fix it to this center line. All right, and let's make that 50. All right, so that moved it over a little bit. And then we say okay. All right, so now we have a sketch that is defined and it is relative to our other object. So now we can take this sketch, right? And we can go to feature and we can do an revolving cut. So like an extruded cut and like a revolving boss base, we're going to actually use this line here, this feature, to cut out part of this cube. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a revolving cut that takes that feature. We tell it what axis we want to run on, right? We're going to choose this one. And it shows you a preview. It says, all right, this is where it's going to go. And we're going to say 360 degrees, and we say okay. Right? And what that does is that cuts that donut, or half donut in this case, out of that cube. So once again, like if you were using, say, a CNC router, you could cut a notch out here. Maybe you would have, it'd be a raceway that ball bearings would go in or something like that. I don't know. I don't know exactly what this feature would relate to in something you were building, but this is a simple version of that. So let's look at something a little bit more complicated. So we'll back up here and we'll go and we'll actually go in here. We're editing that feature already. All right. So let us delete that circle. All right. So we have our sketch here again. Boom. All right. So we're on plane one. We're normal to plane one. And we're going to draw something perhaps a little bit more complicated in there. So actually, in this case, not too much more complicated. It's just going to be a rectangle. So let's do a corner rectangle. Let's start on that line again. We'll bring it down. We'll go there. All right. So we see that rectangle there. Say OK. And then we want to do smart dimensions. So this top line and this bottom line are defined because they're associated with a point on that, a line on that known cube. So let's do our distance here to the center. We'll make that 40. All right. And then we can either do the width of this, or we can do a distance to the center again. Let's just do width. I'm going to pull this up here, and we'll make that 15. All right, so now we have a fully defined rectangle that's inside here, drawn on that front plane, right? So if we look at it, you can see it's drawn on this front plane. We know that it's 40 millimeters away from the center, and we're good to go. All right, so we say okay. So now what we can do, it wants us to redraw, so that's fine. So we go in here, and we can go to features, and we can do a revolving cut with that, right? So now it's got that rectangle selected, but it wants to know what our axis of rotation is, or revolution is. So we click on that, and we select our center line here, right? And then what we have here is it shows us what the preview of how it's going to cut, right? Direction right now is blind. We can do up to the surface, offset from the surface, mid-plane, all those things. But in this case, we want it to be blind, and we want it to be 360 degrees. So we say, okay. Now, like we saw in the class, it's going to give us this prompt of, do we want to keep all of the bodies or just the selected bodies? So for whatever reason, maybe you were cutting that out and you don't need this center core. You could do just selected bodies, and you could choose which bodies you wanted. So that's body one, and it gets rid of body two. Or that's both of them, or that's, if for whatever reason, if you just wanted the center. Kind of silly. I don't know why you'd do it that way, but you know, in some cases that it might be you know, that might be relevant for doing. So let's do all bodies and just say okay, and see, this is what we get. We get this loose piece in the middle, and it's cut all the way through. Okay, so let's back up here, and we'll go here and we'll go to this edit sketch, right? And so we have our known reference lines here. They're all driven. So what we want to do is, let's go there, and let's delete that one. All right. And then we can go up here. We'll pick a line. We'll draw from here across to there. All right. And then we'll say escape. We got that line there. Let's trim some entities. So trim to closest, we'll trim that. We'll trim that. All right, so that gives us a shape here. And those are tools that we used 2 weeks ago. We know how to trim those little tails off, right? So now we've got this rectangle. It doesn't go all the way through anymore, but it's fully defined. We're good. Well, it's not fully defined. We say trim, right? And then let's go smart dimensions. And let's give this distance from here to here, right? And we'll go across here. We'll say 140. All right, so now it's fully defined, right? We don't have any blue lines in there. It knows where it's at, and we're good to go. So we say okay on our dimensions. We can go up here to features, and we'll do a revolve cut, right? We choose our axis. Once again, it shows us a preview of what that revolve cut's going to look like. We say check mark. And now when you tip it up and you look in there, you can see that that hole doesn't go all the way through. Instead, it goes down to the depth you wanted to show it. Now, if you wanted to make it so that you could see that, because right now it's kind of hard to visualize, we can go in here and we can click this and we can hide part of it. See? So there you see what our cut looks like. Okay. So that's pretty much what we covered in the class. I'm going to post some assignments for you guys to do. And I'll have you do a little bit of that. I might pull in some stuff that we did at the beginning, because all of this obviously is going to build off of itself. And you're using a little bit anyway. You're using the sketch tools. You're drawing rectangles and circles and extruding bases. So we'll look at that a little bit. And next week we'll go over actually how to use the brain just blank there. We will go over how to do an assembly. So we'll do multiple parts. We'll show how they go together, and we'll show how to do a quick motion study. We might just use pre-made gears, and in that case, I'll show you again how to go through the gears. So I'd open it up right now, but if you remember, it takes a while for the catalog to open, but it's all over here in the design library. You can click on that. It opens up the design library, brings up the screws or the gears or the bearings, and it's all stuff that's customizable over on this left-hand side. So with that, I will let you guys go. As always, if you have some questions, send me an email, give me a call, whatever. So we'll talk to you guys later. Bye.